short-term rental is a business, okay? So you have to run it as a business.
It changes the whole game, really, right?
That's not in real estate, it's in hospitality.
You're going to be paying a lot of tax. So
I guess I'm being part of the problem here. Christina Freeland, who's gone now, thankfully. It is a really dirty story, okay?
we're trying to help people make money here, right?
People never rent to a bachelorette party.
They destroyed the place. There's shit everywhere.
Wild.
Hire a professional company that is going to take away this pain, free up your time, and also make you money.
Welcome to another episode of Beyond the Listing podcast. And today we have a wonderful guest, Dmitri. He is a fantastic mortgage broker and a financial expert. I've known Dmitri for quite some time, and I love to see you grow in this space, and it's been an incredible journey for you. So can you share maybe a few seconds of what it is that exactly that you do and what you have accomplished so far?
Well, first of all, thank you guys for inviting me over today. It's a pleasure to be here in your company and discuss a pretty exciting topic as the short-term rentals, right? What we do, we basically work with a different spectrum of financial services, and we help Canadians to become homeowners, to grow the investment portfolios. We have the lending arm that helps people to basically access funds for their projects. So we finance renovation, construction projects.
Amazing.
Yeah, and at the same time, we help people who are looking to obtain short-term rentals to get into the game or expand their portfolios as well. So that's pretty much what we are doing.
You're in the right place for that.
Perfect, Dmitri. Now let's dive in a little deeper in terms of the short-term rental space and then the mortgage behind it. You want to just share a little bit about the products that are available for either a primary residence or a first-time home buyer or an investor? What type of products are available if they're considering, buying a property for also short-term rental purposes?
Okay, well, it's a great question because up until recently, Canadian mortgage market was fairly limited in terms of offers, right? So people had to find creative strategies how to obtain the property and convert into short-term rentals. And the issues were not only from the mortgage perspective, it was also from the insurance perspective. How do you get an insurance on a property that covers short-term rentals because your lender needs to see the insurance binder, right? So people were trying to navigate. Luckily, there is pluses and minuses in everything in life, and because mortgage market is slower right now, lenders start looking at the ways how they can lend more money out in the market. And recently we had products appearing on the market, and we have access to them that allows people to buy or refinance specifically short-term purpose properties. Okay.
Wow, that's amazing.
So it's a deeper topic to discuss because there is more regulations, there is more guidelines that every single client, based on their situation, first-time buyer versus somebody with a portfolio, they're going to have different structure. But the point is, there is more options available today than it was even a year ago.
Right.
So everybody talks about the myth about mortgage financing, right?
Right. Because my team reached out to a few mortgage brokers, and some of them came back. It's like, why would we even touch Airbnb? Because you can't get a mortgage for an Airbnb, and it was almost like an angry reply. And now we can reply back to them, say, listen, I don't think you did your due diligence. Maybe you can speak a little more about those products that are on the market.
Absolutely. And truth be told, a lot of people choose the path of least resistance, right? So short-term rental financing is not the easiest one, right? And again, only a handful of lenders, if you dive down into their guidelines, they allow this. For example, some of the lenders' guidelines are 150, 200 pages long, and the short-term rental component maybe covers one page. So if you're not spending time in your due diligence researching and you don't have access to certain lenders, because we as a power broker, we're able to access, lenders that...
So I guess you do a lot of reading.
You know what, unfortunately, I would rather read books versus the guidelines, but this is what we have to do, right? Especially if I have to advise clients and my agents. But the point is, you can now access financing on both angles from A and B lenders. So B lenders entered the mortgage financing at first, right? Because they're allowed to do things that basically A lenders would not want to touch or regulation doesn't allow. But now we actually just signed a contract with one of the major financial institutions in Canada. It's an A lender. And for a small rate premium, you can actually obtain short-term rental financing. So again...
that's a game changer, right?
Yeah.
Because I think Edwin was saying that in the States, this was available for quite some time, and that's like it changes the whole game, really, right? And now we can have that in Canada.
Maybe we can dive in a little. So let's use a case as an example. So say a popular condo in Toronto, probably Anton has one in mind, but I personally like the 300 Front Street West.
Lovely one.
I'm
Makes
an
a lot
investor
of money.
myself, so coming in to you looking for lending, does it mean that the income produced from the property can be used as kind of the debt ratio?
Yes, absolutely. And the cool part is with this new program, you can use up to 80% of your gross income to qualify.
Really?
Wow.
And it's
Wow.
huge. It's huge. It's better than a long-term rentals in this
Well,
regard.
I mean,
'Cause-
we're making sometimes around 90 to 100%
over
more
100,
than a
yeah.
long-term rental. So you're literally expending your
Mhm.
opportunity to refinance or invest so much more.
Yeah.
Well, it mostly applicable to existing refinance properties because
Right.
because the issue is the purchase, right? There is no data. So when you approach and you want to buy a short-term rental, right, and it's a condo unit, and as you guys know, it's a business, right? Where with long-term rentals, it's considered to be a passive income. So for the appraiser, right, or the bank, it's easy to understand what kind of incomes the property will produce to qualify you. With short-term rentals, there is no data to support because you can have two identical units, right, on the same floor or maybe
Yeah,
in
with
the
different
same
income.
building, and they're gonna have absolutely different results, right?
One might be mismanaged, the other one is managed.
Exactly
well.
my
Right.
point, right? So those programs, they're more applicable for a refinance type of properties, right, where you already owned it for a couple of years, but it doesn't mean that you can't apply as a short-term rental and then down the road to refinance it, right? The bank will still use the long-term rental rates to help you with the income when you first buying it. And once you start showing
Right,
the income, but the best part is they know it's a short-term rental, so you can apply for proper insurance coverage if it's a house. Like if it's a condo insurance, you don't really need to worry about this.
Right.
Yeah, but with
So
the
when
cottage,
you're
yeah.
buying it, you're basically basing the numbers based on a long-term rental, but they know it's a short-term rental.
Absolutely.
And then a few years down the road, you're gonna show the real numbers and say, "Listen, I want to get a second one," and then you're gonna have so much more opportunity to take the money out, right? So much more money you can take out because it's showing higher.
Absolutely.
Income,
And
right?
actually, we had a client not too long ago, and that's exactly what we did because he owned a property and it was a short-term rental property. And, we had to find ways. It was private money involved and everything else. And now it came for renewal and I actually used this product to refinance him and pay out higher interest loans with an A type of deal, right?
Well, that's a huge
Which
deal
he
because some of those loans are at like 9-10%. And how much is the mortgage? Like 3.5%, 4%?
Yeah,
it's a huge difference.
Well, for this particular client, he saved about $9,000 of extra interest a year, so it goes back right to his ROIs, right? So it is a game changer. I mean, again, it's a new product on the market, so not too many people know about this. I'm glad that we have.
Well,
access
now they
to this.
will. Now they will.
Obviously, right? But there is definitely a player right now from the A lender side, and there is a couple of players from the B lender side that will accommodate properties like this. And now you have options where before you had very limited opportunities when it comes to mortgage financing for those properties.
For like the short-term rental income, when you go for the refinance, is 1 year of income evidence sufficient for proof, or you need more than that? Because in the U.S., they also allow for like AirDNA data as a proof of income, and then they will obviously write down that income a little bit for the loan itself. But is it the same here?
Yes, absolutely, but it's different. Okay, so in the United States, you can't compare regulations with the United States
We're very different.
with Canada because first of all, United States has over 13,000 banks, right? In Canada, we have like 50 plus institutions, right? And they're heavily regulated. Okay, so you can go from different state to state. You're going to have different rules, right? So Florida rules is going to be different from New York or California, okay? And then lenders within the states are going to have different rules. So Canada is way more conservative when it comes to this. So to answer your question, you can technically qualify based on 1 year income, but only with the B lenders. So you'll pay a little bit of a premium. Once you have 2 years of data, right, and you filed your taxes and it shows how much of gross income you have, now you can transfer it to an A lender. So technically speaking, if you're a first-time buyer who's entering the short-term rental space, you can absolutely get financing based on 1 year data, and then you can transfer to an A side with
after
2
for the
years
refinance.
available. Yeah, absolutely. This is why whenever we do a short-term loan, such as private loan or B lender loan for short-term rentals, we only do 1 to 2 year terms because it allows our clients to transfer them to a different, a better financing in 2 years without paying any penalties.
Right.
Yeah, I mean, this is incredible because you mentioned the crippling payments. This whole new product allows you to kind of switch gears and save money. And 9,000 a year is probably not the highest number somebody can save. There's lots of brutal stories I hear these days. We had Nima on the podcast last time telling us how people are losing money all the time, and it feels like this would actually be a game changer if they switch over to short-term rentals. They're netting a lot more money to keeping themselves afloat, and then they can use that as refinance leverage in the future to maybe do a renovation in the space to make the space even better, to make more money on these short-term rentals, to elevate the space from the standpoint of a resale value as well, right? Because you renovate it, you spend 100 G's, it's probably going to go up double of what you spent in renovations. Renovations are not for everybody, you know that. You have your fun stories around that.
Yes, renovation stories. It's never-ending pool of fun and joy.
But you did build equity by doing that, right? Obviously, you spend 100 G's in renovations, you're gonna get 200,000 for it most of the time.
Well, don't forget, it's not only this, right? Because as you know, guys, short-term rental is a business, okay? So you have to run it as a business. And what a lot of, especially in today's market, what a lot of homeowners or even owners of short-term rentals, if they want to sell the property and capitalize the most in the downturn market, they want to show to the future buyer there is a capacity to make money with the purchase, okay? So you can ask for more. So if you're doing a renovation and the property has a strong 2 or 3 years income, right, and now you have financing available for this, you can actually ask for more money for your property. So it's not only the revenue that you receive year after year, it's the ability to sell the property at the premium, because now your property generates that extra income. Because if you add secondary suite or you have a proper upgrade, right, you can technically sell it for more or ask for more money in terms of short-term rental rates.
Yeah, I think that's a huge deal. Again, going back to this new product that B lenders and A lenders even are coming up with, because it's just going to help our industry significantly, because now we're also, I feel like almost like in the shadows sometimes, right? It's like almost you're running, even though we Edwin and I, our approach is very business-like. A lot of people are just hustlers in this business. They're just scheming and stuff, right? So everybody thinks about short-term rentals, Airbnb. It's like almost like a scheme rather than a business. This really helps take it to the kind of a better level of perception, maybe, that this is actually a business. If you put strategies together, you can make a lot of money. And it kind of like, let's switch gears a little bit. You and I, we sat down a few months ago, I think it was May or so, and we looked at how much revenue can people generate, how much even capital gain they can have, right, on this, what's the cap rate a year on such an investment. And we looked at some condos downtown. I remember we looked at 105 George. I think the prices went even further down. We were looking at a 1-bedroom for just above $500,000. I think they're under $500,000 right now that you can purchase a 1-bedroom in an Airbnb-friendly condo. Then what do we see? You did the mortgage calculation. We looked at the taxes. We looked at all the expenses. We put it together. We threw in a staging. And you're a financial whiz, so you're like, we can make some money back here and there, right, if we optimize it. And we got something like 12.5% cap rate a year. You cannot have that in a lot of businesses. Even the stock market, it's going up very, very well, very good. It's very high, but like in general, it's what, 7%, 7 to 10% on average, right? If you take a long period of time, 12%, 12.5%, even if it's less than 12%, 10%, it's an incredible achievement when condos, if you just buy one and rent it long-term, yield maybe like, I don't know, 3-4%, right? So it's there's a lot of opportunity there, I think, right?
Well, look at it this way, okay? And to your point, back when we talked in May, the prices were slightly higher and the mortgage rates were also higher. Okay, right
it's
now,
even better now.
Yes, rates did come down, so now you can get rates anywhere from high 3s to low 4s. And when we were calculating, it was high 4s. Okay,
everybody should be buying a short-term rental condo today, because it's really, and coming to this guy for mortgage and financial optimization, because this is really a very smart approach, because everything's going to cost so much more, right?
Well, it's not just that, right? What you have to look at, there's 2 components to it, right? You have your short-term rental income, okay, but you also have an internal rate of return where you're paying down the mortgage within this period of time as you're holding the property, right?
Right.
So what? Yes, absolutely, the principle. So when we were calculating, it was 12 points after the management fees, which is huge.
Yes.
Because if somebody looks at this right now and really understands the short-term rental business, they're like, well, for the business, right, if I have to spend 80% of my time to run a show, 12 points doesn't sound like an exciting deal, because in other business you can make 20, 25, 40 if you do it yourself. In our calculation, it was after the management fees,
Exactly.
which was actually pretty huge. And among my clientele, you have basically two type of clients, right? When it comes to short-term rentals, people that running it themselves, and I have clients who started with one property. Now they have 4 or 5, and they run a full-time business. They actually quit their jobs doing that themselves, right? And again, from one end is good, from one end is not so much, because some of them had to quit their jobs because, as you know yourself, especially in the cottage country, it's almost impossible to have a full-time job, run a business, and run 5 cottages, because there is always problems.
Yep.
You know, guests will call you
You'll know
last
all
minute.
about that.
Well, absolutely, right. And I've been involved in some project like this where we acted as partners and financiers, right? And we've seen what was happening on the projects, right? Where, you know, the cleaner is not going to show up on the day when guests arrive. And guess what? You have to be there, right, yourself. I actually have few clients who sold their properties because they said we had enough of this because we just couldn't find good teams, right, to work with. So 12% is fantastic if it's hands-off. First of all, and like you said, you can get it because we have to compare apples to apples, right? So if you compare with long-term rental, it's a passive income, okay? So you're making 3 to 4 points, but with long-term rentals, assuming that you have good tenants and there is no issues with them not paying, right? Because that's a different stories altogether, right? You're making 3 or 4 points, but you never show up. Maybe once a year if the dishwasher stops working, right? Or you call somebody to get into the unit. So what we talked about is almost the same approach, right? Where you guys taking care of the operation, so the client can buy the unit and offload the management up to you guys. So now you're comparing 3 to 4% to 12% on an almost passive income type of deal. So that's what made it super attractive. And if you throw in the internal rate of return, the principal payout, you're pushing towards 20%, right?
I think it might have been 12% with the internal rate of return. Everything when I said financial wizardry did, it was that. So yeah, it's most likely with everything you're looking at 12 points, which is very good anyways, right?
I got to run the numbers again, but I'm pretty sure we didn't calculate the internal rate of return and payout. Which
well, then it's even sweeter than that.
We were looking cash on cash returns, right? So that's what was happening. But anyways, we can run the numbers again, right?
But they were fantastic. That's all I'm saying. It was a very, very strong case for me to come out and start telling people, my family members, friends, everybody, listen, this is the time to get a short-term rental Airbnb-friendly condo, do short-term rentals there, and you're just, you're putting in your money at one of the lowest times in recent history where the real estate is all the way down. It might come down a little bit further, but you can never, predict the market. But we know for a fact that unless something major is going to happen in this world, in 5 years' time, this is going to be a very different price point for those investments.
Well, it's a good point. And again, I don't think you need to drop everything and start and around buying, because I think there is going to be still a lot of supply coming in this next 12 to 18 months. But this is what's happening on the market right now. There is pretty much no construction going on at the moment. Ontario, Toronto is dead as pre-constructions. Yeah. And not only that, I have phone calls right now from clients who are asking me what to do with the money, because the builders called them and said, we canceling the whole construction projects. They're getting $100,000, getting $150,000 back, which I would say in this market is the best case scenario. When clients call me, I said, listen, you're lucky. Yeah. Because there is cases right now where people walking away from the deposits on their purchases and they're losing $250,000, $200,000.
What's worse, sometimes they lose the deposit and they have to pay an additional transfer to the new buyers because nobody's buying even at those prices. So you need to incentivize them further, which is crazy. Well, that's after-tax money.
Well, first of all, it's crazy, but the reason why this is happening, because what people do not realize when you're buying from the builder, right? People might say, well, why is somebody walking away from a $200,000 deposit? And actually, I belong to this group where we have this assignment sales. And just recently, I've seen an assignment on Peter Street, right? Like basically right downtown. The seller is walking away from $225,000 deposit, right, on a condo. So you might ask, well, why would they do this?
Can't close.
They can't close. And if they don't close and the builder sells for less,
Yep.
they're not only liable for 225,000 they already lost, but they're liable for the difference. The builder can go after them. So they would rather lose 225,000, right?
Yep.
And not to have a chance of losing another 150 or 200,000, right?
Yeah.
So that's why if you're smart and you prepared, and that's basically what I tell all my clients right now. Don't rush into deals. Get prepared, learn the market, and when you're ready, structure the proper financial pro forma, and then go and buy with the knowledge that you have. And that's where short-term rental helps, because if you do this with long-term rentals, it's difficult, right? But in your opinion, because I mean you have the data, right? What would be the average net income for a condo holder in Toronto?
Well, what I like to say to that is the most popular question I get when somebody is calling with a lead, and it's tough to say because every property is different. But what we generally see is that we make 50 to 100% in the owner's pocket versus long-term rental. So multiply your long-term rental price for that unit and add 50 to 100%, and that's what you're going to be getting. And I think that's a pretty good number. And that's in the pocket after, our fees, after Airbnb fees, after everything. Obviously, they have to pay their mortgage, they have internet and those little things and insurance. But in terms of the short-term rental fees aside, that's how much they basically net. And that's really, really good. So if a condo, we're seeing just a one-bedroom condo, we're seeing on average is making maybe $4,500 a month. And that condo would rent for maybe $2,200, $2,300 a month. So there you go. That is your 80 to 90% increase over there, and and that's literally after the expenses. Again, we're not including mortgage expenses. We're not including expenses like maintenance, but that's a very, very, very strong number. So that's a one-bedroom plus den, I believe, and you're looking at almost doubling your cash flow, because what's happening is people are struggling to pay mortgages, people are struggling to pay these high, maintenance fees and everything, right? And when they do long term, they're barely breaking even. Sometimes they're negative cash flow every month. This helps you be positive cash flow, and you're able to sustain for those, the next 5 years when the prices are going to go up, and you can resell this property.
Well, look at it this way. Assuming that prices don't go up, right? But if you can net, let's assume the mortgage is $2,000, the condo fee is about $550, right? So plus, general utilities and everything else. So let's say they're putting, $1,000 to $1,500 a month in positive cash flow, right? Multiply it over 5 years, right? You're looking at about $17,000 a year. You're looking at about $70,000 to $80,000 of net incomes, right? So if you buy the same condo for $430,000 today, right, and it goes down to $390,000, but you keep it long term. The key is long term, right? Because predicting short term is difficult, right? But if it's this type of returns, if you keep it long term, you're almost guaranteed to make money. Because even if you sell at the same price that you bought it, you already made money with the property, right? So
if it is short term, right?
It's a short term.
Yeah. And to kind of echo your question again, 75,000 is a good number for like a one bedroom downtown. Or something that's a little bit higher up around Yorkdale, maybe you're looking at 70,000 for like a 2-bedroom, but you are making substantially more than you would be making from a long-term rental for sure.
Well, it's just two different business models, right? And this is why a lot of people, and last time I checked, it was about 8,300 short-term rental units in GTA. Okay, so a lot of people are right now moving towards short-term rental model, right? It's a business, again, it's difficult, but at the same time, if you have a proper team or you run it yourself full time, right, it allows you to maximize returns on your investment or even offset the expense for your property. I have a friend of mine, because right now you can build, and we actually finance those garden suites. Okay,
yes.
So you own a property, you can do a garden suite, and you don't have to do it for the short term. Long term. You can actually convert it, get a license, and convert it into a short-term rental as well.
You can convert any dwelling into short-term rental, right? As long as you follow the city regulations.
Well, absolutely. Now, you do have to follow city regulations, and one of the reasons is the tax rules that have changed recently. Not recently, but I mean about 2 years ago. They introduced by Christina Freeland, who's gone now, thankfully. But I mean, it's a different topic altogether. But
that's a different podcast.
Exactly, maybe not as peaceful, but
definitely not.
Yeah, but
we're trying to help people make money here, right? Not bring out controversy.
Exactly, but the point is, if you do not abide by local rules, right? Because when you file your taxes, and you guys can talk to your accountants about this if you're in short-term rental space, they actually have a separate line right now for short-term rentals, and you have to indicate which municipality you're in.
Yep.
And if you're not licensed, you cannot write off the expenses for those properties.
Right.
So if you made $80,000, that $80,000 goes directly in towards your total income. So if you're in a high income bracket making like 140, 150, you're already pushing at 47% of marginal tax rate. Now you're losing pretty much 50% of your total returns. So you got to make sure that you abide by the local guidelines. It's
So basically, you're saying play by the book. That's how we like to do it. That's the best way to go about it. That makes sense. These are the new guidelines, and if you're not registered in your municipality, you don't have the proper short-term rental license number, you're going to be paying a lot of tax. So
and HST.
Yeah, and some people don't know it because they're not professional, and that's a very good point. That I see a lot of people from my network, university, school, they are starting to see that this is a serious business, that we're showing some really good numbers. They're coming to us now. We have some friends and family friends who are actually reaching out, be like, hey, I've been actually doing Airbnb. Maybe you can take over it? And because we've seen about 30 to 50% increase in numbers versus unprofessional cohorts. Or I don't want to say unprofessional, I don't want to say also dilettante, but what's the right word? When they do it casually, right? They're not professionals.
The mom and pop operators.
Exactly. So we actually seen 30 to 50% increase on short-term rental versus short-term rental, because Edwin knows we use professional tools. We have people who watch over pricing, and when you're doing it yourself, you just can't. You have probably another job, and you're just putting in some pricing and hope for the best. Where we have a person looking at it every day or every other day, and it just changes the game completely.
Yeah.
Well, and that goes back to my previous point. This is a business. That's what a lot of people do not understand. When you're getting a short-term rental, you're getting into a business.
Yeah.
You have to spend time. You have to, accommodate your clients. You have to optimize your performance. And if you're doing 9 to 5 plus you're throwing a couple kids in the mix, how are you going to do this? It's simply impossible.
Oh, yeah.
So, guy, and you know yourself, right? If you get these bad reviews, especially in the beginning of your journey, you got 2 or 3 stars, you're done. Your business is over.
You might as well start a new listing.
You start a new listing. You start a new listing.
Okay, let's start a new one.
And that's the reality of things. You can only 2 ways to basically fix it. You either reduce the price, you start a new listing.
Yep.
So, and hopefully you can get 5 stars. And that's super important, right? To have a good team. Because even if at the end of the day, you end up making the same amounts of money, but now you free up your time where you can spend time with kids, research, read a book, learn how to invest. You actually end up making more money.
I should hire you for sales, because that's exactly what we sell, right? We basically give people their time back. And we had clients that messaged us saying, guys, thank you for giving us 45, that was very specific, 45 minutes every day. We got 45 minutes a day, and we can do something we want and like, because they're business professionals, very successful people, very smart people. And we got a message like, wow, that's incredible, right? To be that particular and precise. You give us 45 minutes back into our lives. Thank you for that. We really appreciate it.
Well, think about this, right? I mean, if you buy property in Toronto and you need to go in a rush hour, and Toronto is pretty much 24/7 rush hour, unless you go 12 at night, right? It's not 45 minutes. It's more than that, because now we have to drive down there. And if you're in Muskoka, you're talking about 2 hours,
I got clients
right?
driving 2 hours to clean themselves. I was like, so 6 hours is worth $300 to you?
Yeah.
And then they'll be like, that's right. I just wasted my whole day. That could have done something better.
Yeah, some people do it because they love it, and that's totally fine. But the ones who want to benefit from it but don't want to do the work, like these guys, they said, if we didn't find you, and they're very particular, right, in terms of who they wanted to work with. If we didn't find you and we didn't get along well, we would just sell the condo, because we wouldn't be able to deal with this. We're not interested, right, anymore, because it just cost too much. It was a time suck, right? And they need to focus on and make money with what they're doing, right, instead of this stuff.
I want to bring the conversation to back to mortgage stuff a little bit. obviously we deal with, or at least Anton and I, we deal with mostly, I guess more in the city is more like first-time home buyers or investors or second homeowners. For these three types of customers or clients that you deal with, if they were interested to purchase a property for short-term rental purposes, how should they be preparing for it?
Okay, well, first of all, it's a great question because, again, from the reasons that we discussed before, if you just walk into the bank or the agent who's not dealing with this, you would not know where to start, and you might get a wrong advice. So you get into financing that you could avoid. Okay, and I actually helped a couple deals to close where the person was buying for this purpose, and then the lender found out, and basically we had to use private funds to close it on basically within 3 days and save the purchase, and then we had to restructure the full file. So one of the most important parts of this journey is to make sure that you have proper plan and you know exactly what you're doing, right? So it starts obviously by determining how can I get financing for the property that I'm buying and how much of a down payment I'm going to have, right? And how much I can actually qualify for, right? The second step, they need to understand how much income are they going to produce and not to be hopeful just because they've seen a listing that shows, $800 per night.
Get that all the time.
And you think, well, if if my occupancy rate is 75%, I don't care, but the interest rate is a great investment, right? I can borrow private money. I'll be, driving Lambo in a couple of years.
That's where the problems start.
yeah. A lot of people doing it for the wrong reason, right? It is a great tool to make money, but it's actually a tool that can break your bank, okay?
Oh, yeah, for sure.
Especially if the market turns on you. So what was happening over the past 10 years, right? Real estate market, because it kept going up, right? It was allowing it was basically eating the mistakes that people were making. Because you buy the property, you mismanage it, and then you sell it and you still make money. And it doesn't allow for this right now. If you buy a property right now and you mismanage it and you don't know what kind of financing you're going to get, what kind of teams you're going to get, how much, what's the most conservative rates that you're going to receive in terms of stays, you're not going to make it because you're going to start topping up that rental unit with your own money.
And you can never know. I mean, you will know if it's, again, that 300 Front Street West, if it's 105 George, some of the condos that we know that perform very well, like you're pretty safe unless something drastic happens in the world or city completely goes berserk, and then they do the same thing as what New York did, which is basically ban Airbnbs. And even then, you can do long-term rental, right? Like it's not like you can't do anything with it. But often people call and say, how much can I make on this property? I said, you want me to lie to you and give you a number? Because until you do it, you don't know. Every single time we launch a new property, I have a little bit of a tremor inside, being like, is this going to be the one where we are not being able to fill it? Is it going to be sitting empty and we're going to say, what the hell? We've had 1 or 2 properties that had a rough launch, like rough, as in like we had to lower the price way beyond what we're comfortable with, because if you keep lowering the price, you will attract a worse type of poor guests, and we don't want that. But we had to take that avenue with these 2 properties and they were not in particular, like they were not bad, right, per se, not, they're not downtown condos by no means. So we had to, play around a little bit, and you never know. Now they're doing much better, and they're going to level out now very nicely because they're going to get nice reviews. They have lots of inquiries, et cetera, et cetera. But in the beginning, it's always scary. There is a house we have that's a 4-bedroom in Scarborough. It's nothing special at all, right? Like we made sure it's staged nice. It has everything. It has a nice kitchen. So, it's attractive in certain ways. It was not an easy start about a year ago. This year, this property made $28,000 in 2.5 months in the summer, which is insane. I think we got very lucky with that booking, to be honest with you. But even if it made, $20,000 during that period of time, that is above and beyond what it would be long term, right? So you never know, because would I projected making that much money? No, I didn't, and it's very difficult to see what property would do well. Like that property is doing well, and some other properties that should be doing way better. And, you have a house in Scarborough Bluffs you mentioned. It's like, that's a much nicer area. I would assume that'd be, killing it. But
didn't kill it.
Yeah.
Listen, this is why, and going back to your question, right? We have to make a financial performance, right, for each single client,
And a plan.
and a plan, and most importantly, we have to. The client needs to understand that they cannot overextend themselves, right?
Exactly. For this reason, that my whole soliloquy was to kind of prove your point that you never know what's going to happen. It could be there's a few places that you kind of sure about, but there's so many other things that you never know.
Yeah,
you need
and
to be careful.
and it's always good to have a good exit strategy, right? If something doesn't play out, right? But whenever clients come to us, we always break down the best and the worst case scenario, right? What's going to happen, and many times worst case scenario is okay. Can we convert it into long-term rental, right? Now the long-term rental rates kept coming down, and the report just came out yesterday. The long-term rental rates also came down again this past months in Toronto. Now it's about I think $2,300, right, for a one bedroom.
Yep.
So
the demand I heard picked up a little bit. At
the
least.
demand picked up a lot. Like as you know, I own a rental portfolio, and we just rented out a 2-bedroom unit in Mississauga, and I couldn't believe I listed. Well, I was back in July. I was away for a month, and we had 70 showings.
70?
70.
Okay, I guess demand did pick up.
Yeah. Demand did pick up, but again, those are the larger units, right? And you can also talk about this, what kind of units perform the best.
Yeah, larger units, 100%.
But here's the thing, right? People talk about condo markets and everything else, how the condo market is crushing, and there is definitely truth to that, right? When you talk about small, 450, 500 square foot, that definitely oversupply, and it's difficult to sell them right now. There is more units coming on the market, but then there is it's a story of two condo markets. Look at the certain 100 square foot penthouses, right? And I even checked where my office at. They still sold for almost the same price that they were selling in 2022, 2021. Right?
It's a unique product, right? And that's what we were talking on the podcast last time with Nima, that the small units, there's just, like you said, it's oversaturated. There's too many of them that were built. Only a few large 2 bedrooms, 3 bedrooms, or penthouses that are out there. So supply and demand is just a lower supply. So,
well, that's exactly what it is. But also keep in mind what's happening right now, and I guess I'm being part of the problem here.
Let's be honest.
The truth to be told. But you have certain programs right now from CMHC where you can refinance a purpose-built rental units, right? So a lot of builders right now switch their projects from the condo construction to an apartment building, because now you can
I've noticed that. I see a lot more builders just really. I haven't seen
Straight
that from
to
like the
rental.
80s, right? You had a lot of these apartment buildings in the 80s, and everything 90s on, it's been like condos, because that's where the money was at, I guess.
We're gonna turn into a renter nation here, just like the US.
Yeah, so basically they switching to a purpose-built rental, so you're gonna have more supply of rentals, and builders who actually build condos, they start unloading them as rentals as well, right? So renting the units out. Plus, you have a lot of supply coming in, so you could expect the long-term rental rates to be coming down within the next probably 2 to 3 years as the supply dwindles. Okay. Plus, depending how much immigration you're going to have into Canada, that can also impact, right? So all of these numbers you have to take into consideration, and that's where the short-term rental part, especially if you're already an owner of the unit, right? It helps you to, not to unload the unit at the loss if you even overpaid for it a couple of years ago. If you are lucky and you are like if it's a condo building that allows you short-term rentals or even mid-term rentals, right? Because yourself, right? If you have a place and you can do 28 days, you can still try to rent, right? And you get much better rates of return than long-term rentals.
Well, you'll
right?
at least get something, not less than what you're doing long-term. That's what we've experienced.
But my point is, short-term rental component does allow to offset those wins that coming our way when it comes to long-term rentals, and actually, if not only make money, but at least carry the property through this period of time when you can sell it later and at least get your down payment back, right? So
100%.
And also gives you more control, because as a short-term rental, if you ever decide the market is good enough to sell, you can sell right away. As a long-term, you're stuck with it.
Listen, you pretty much staged, right? You can literally list it the same day because you have all the
you have the
everything,
flexibility.
right? So,
Listed is all staged, ready to go.
Yeah, actually, one of our clients, she's leaving because she wants to sell her unit, but she wants to do long-term, because that's her strategy. She wants to do long-term rental before she sells it. And I'm like, well, if you're going to do long-term rental, you won't be able to sell it, because rarely condos with long-term leases sell. And to get the tenant out, they might not want to move out in the longest time. So anyways, and I said everybody has their strategies and everybody has their reasons. So I understand. It's very unfortunate. Her condo made her $10,000 in August in her pocket. So we're just like, and she understands that too. She's a smart lady, but that's the strategy she wants to take. And she said, let me think about it. Maybe I come back. But long story short is that it gives you the flexibility where long-term doesn't. So you spoke about a little bit about the 28 days. Like you've dabbled in the space of short-term rentals. Just wanted to hear some fun stories that you've encountered in your life dealing with short-term rentals, either your clients or your stories that are fun and wild. We want the dirt now.
The dirt. Okay. I have one for you. Okay, it's a good client of mine, and him and his partner, they bought a short-term rental, unit. And it is a really dirty story, okay? So they hired a cleaning company out of Barrie, okay? And because they kept trying different cleaners, and they just couldn't find the reputable cleaner who would actually show up and do it to their standards.
And that's a cottage you're talking about?
It's just outside of Barrie. So it's a house, but you can call it a cottage, right? So they hired this company, and when he told me, I couldn't believe it, right? So they show up, and the blankets were not made properly, like there was still dirt and whatever, right? So they called the company. It was apparently two ladies running this, right? And they said, you know what you've done is unacceptable, because we had to clean the whole house again, right? And guess what? They see the cameras, because they have cameras around the property. They show up, and let's just say they use dirt, and they put dirt all over their doors. But it wasn't the dirt. So, yeah.
Jesus Christ.
Why
that's
did they do that?
that's
Why?
beyond me, because I guess they didn't want to pay them, so they thought that they did their job and they deserve to get paid for the work that they've done.
Oh, wow.
But when he told me, I couldn't believe it myself, because that's
Wild. So basically, they didn't pay for the work because they had to redo it, and out of spite, they put dirt on their doors.
Yeah. And then the other one, clients bought.
Be careful with cleaners, Edwin. In Barrie.
No, absolutely. I have another client. He's an architect by trade, and that's one of the examples when they had to actually sell the property, because they bought it out eastern towards Prince Edward County. Okay, and again, cleaning. And if you remember, when you first started your business, we had a conversation.
Cleaning will make or break your business.
I told you, if you don't solve the cleaning issue, forget about doing this business altogether. Because this fella, he had to sell his property. It was rented well. The bookings were there. The problem is he had to literally drive himself at 10 o'clock at night to get the unit ready for the next day, okay, and drive back and to run his business. And after about a year and a half, he said, I had enough. I don't care how much money this makes. Like, I just can't handle it. And every time they were trying to find a good, cleaning lady, right? They just couldn't do it. So that's some of the examples, right? But overall, and again, I can talk probably for an hour about different stories, because I see them firsthand, because clients always share it with me, right? And I've been involved in a couple projects as a silent partners, okay? So ultimately speaking, most of the projects turn to be a successful projects, right? Because but the road to get to that, okay, either one of the partners had to quit their job and run it full time and make it a success, right? Or they had to sell it, or they had to hire a professional company.
Like Edwin and I, right? So
that's ultimately what it is, right? So recommendation for anybody who's jumping into a short-term rental, if you're not able to do it yourself, right?
Commit to doing it.
Yeah, committing. Actually, not just committing. You may commit, but again, if you have business, if you have job, you have kids, that commitment may ruin you, right? And it may ruin your investment. Hire a professional company that is going to take away this pain, free up your time, and also make you money. Because ultimately speaking, once you have this, 10, 15, 25-star reviews, now you can adjust your prices, you can offset it, you can charge higher cleaning fees, because people would want to be in your property because it's a recommended property nowadays.
I'll bring you on sales calls with me now from now on. Like, this is my advocate.
Listen, I'm just sharing the stories because ultimately speaking, I like to see success among my clients and my partners. And I would not go into a short-term rental myself, because I'm super busy right now with our
Right.
operation, without having a good partner. And that discussion that we had that, I have a cottage at Muskoka area, right?
Right.
And we're going to rebuild it. And next year I'm going to talk to Edwin once it's done.
Because you said let's do it. I said no, thank you. I have a better option for you sitting right there.
And as you can see, I didn't even consider doing it myself.
Yeah.
Yeah.
I told you, do you want to do it, right? Because I'm trying to establish, okay, how much it's going to cost me. What's I'm doing my own performance, right?
Yeah.
But not even one bit considering to run it myself, simply because I know in my lifestyle, with family situation and business situation, it's just impossible for me to take care of this property.
Yeah.
So, and it's going to be a fabulous project, but I just know for a fact, if I try to run it myself,
It's gonna eat you
it's just
alive.
not going to happen.
Yeah.
I think a lot of people look at it as an investment, but they totally misunderstand that it's a full-on business that's not in real estate, it's in hospitality.
Absolutely.
And that's the first thing we usually tell our clients that call us. It's like, just up front, like, this is not real estate investment. This is not a long-term tenant. This is a mini hotel that you're running.
Yeah, and what bothers me so much to this day, maybe it's the mentality is gonna shift a little bit with these mortgages coming out, mortgage products coming out, with people really struggling with long-term rentals, bad tenants. That when you say short-term rentals, a lot of real estate agents, a lot of people, they just think it's something bad. It's like, ew, like I don't want to touch that, right? Where people make double the amount of money. People make extra $28,000-$30,000 a year that is just basically handed to them on a plate. Being in the same situation, there's nothing else you really need to do. You just need to hire good professionals if you don't want to do it yourself, and it doesn't affect you. Like you don't need to be involved much, right? And it's very bizarre to me that a lot of people, like when we did some cold calling, what we did is basically we segmented all the Airbnb-friendly buildings and looked at long-term leases that are there that are sitting. Nobody is able to, nobody wants to rent them, and we would just call these agents and be like, "Hey, did you consider doing short-term rentals?" And they would be almost malicious. Not all the time. Some were very polite, and I just
They're
said,
more
"No,
like
thank you."
offended.
Huh?
They almost sound like they're offended when you call them.
Well, I guess so, right? But basically, I would be, they're like, yeah, exactly. They sound offended, right? And they're just like, yeah, we would not want to do short-term rentals. Like it's a disease, right? Where they like, why? And because maybe and then they say, oh, there's gonna be so much more wear and tear. I'm like, that's a myth. And I was gonna ask you, like, what myths do you see that are complete bullshit? Sorry for my language, in short-term rentals. And maybe in these mortgage stories, right? When it comes to short-term rentals, that people, like the person who emailed me and said, "Oh, you can't do a mortgage on a short-term rental. Like that's illegal. There's clauses against it." Like these people are putting a bad-mouthing Airbnbs and short-term rentals where that is actually not true. It is way less wear and tear. I can show you a property after a year with a long-term tenant that I had, and after a year of us managing it, it's day and night. Like it is day and night in terms of wear and tear. So that's a myth that I can definitely voice. Is there anything else? Maybe you can share one as well, Edwin and Dmitri, if you something comes to your mind. What else do you think is complete misrepresentation of this industry, and again maybe in the mortgage space as well?
Well, I want to add to this, right? So let me ask you this question: which platform you use the most right now for your?
We use Airbnb.
Exactly, and not too many people know, right? They're not involved. That Airbnb has a $1 million reliability.
Actually, it
coverage.
has $3 million.
3 million now. I see that I was wrong on that
Yeah,
as well. So the story is one of my clients. They had a nice house, right? And they had a group of people that kind of had a wild party, and they broke some furniture, right? They took pictures, did investigation, and Airbnb paid out $900 to replace whatever was broken, right? So here's your wear and tear, right? Secondly,
Get a new couch.
well, it's pretty much what it is, right? I mean, that one could be fixed, right? So it was just a couple of wood pieces that were broken.
Yeah.
So it was.
They probably made money on that too.
Probably did, right? I'm gonna leave it behind the scene, right? But my point is, right? If you know what to expect from the service that you're using, you actually have liability protection, right?
Yes.
For that, it's number one. If you don't use the services, you can hold retainers, right? And you can basically say, okay, you know what, you're renting my space.
If it's a direct booking, right?
Exactly, a direct booking, you can say if it's a house, I want $5,000, whatever. You can set the rules, right, and protect yourself from this type of accidents, right? So I would say this is one of the myths that you're gonna have a heavy wear and tear, but you can easily have wear and tear on the long-term rental, especially if you have a bad tenant.
Oh, you have an insane wear and tear.
And I would say, I don't have as many short-term rental horror stories or myth stories. I kind of shared a few with you, right?
Yeah.
But I definitely can share a lot of long-term rental stories that our clients faced, especially trying to evict clients, and
Right.
Once they evict, the damage that the client caused to the property is
Right.
also in the thousands of dollars that has to be fixed.
And they're not there for 3, 4, 5 days to cause that much. How much damage can you cause in 3, 4, 5 days? You can cause some, right? But you will take over that property again. You will repair. You'll get a refund from, or rather payout from Airbnb. Let's say you'll repair those things, and property will look as new. So there is no wear and tear. You'll need to put a little bit of work, but that's what we're here for, right? Where these long-term tenants are going to stay there and they're going to keep damaging and destroying property for 6 months at a time, a year at a time, right? Well, you said 6 months, minimum lease is a year, right? So it's going to be and you can't stop it, right? It's an ongoing destruction of the property. Where here you kind of cap it off, fix it a little bit, and it's good to go.
Yeah, absolutely. And again, we have a rental portfolio, and we didn't really face such situations, right, ourselves, because we screen. Again, I run it as a business. I don't approach it as, I'm a landlord, you're a tenant, whatever, right? We screen tenants as they're getting the mortgage, pretty much, right?
Yep.
We do the full check, so we never had any issues with our portfolio. But clients that are basically not diligent, and it comes to character check as well. Even if you do short-term rental, you also have to look at the character, right? Yeah. This is why with Airbnb you have reviews of the clients as well, right? You can choose who you rent, who you not rent. So if you have a bad buzz about an inquiry, right, you ask a few questions, nobody's gonna hold you, accountable that you refused, the booking.
We reject a lot of guests.
Exactly.
I'm sure Edwin does as well.
Yep.
Yeah.
Certain groups, certain age, we can say no. So
vetting is key.
Vetting is key.
And you can do that on Airbnb, luckily, yeah.
It's actually a funny story. So my short-term rental clients that have a pretty nice portfolio, the girl told me that we will never rent to a bachelorette party. Bachelors, guys, no problem.
Really?
Yeah. She said
sorry,
that
girls,
sorry, girls.
Girls are very dirty when they come together.
Yeah. And it comes from a girl, right? And she says, "I will not rent to a bachelorette party. Bachelors, yes, no problem. Bachelorettes, not so
moms.
much."
So we had a group of 6 moms that are like, "Hey, we're gonna get together. Our kids are in daycare. We're gonna catch up and relax." They destroyed the place. There's shit everywhere.
Wild.
Yep.
Okay, no moms, I guess. Well, that's a fantastic. That's a fantastic place to kind of end our lovely discussion today. Thank you so much for coming on here. It was a fantastic, insightful conversation.
Yeah. How can people reach you if they're looking for a mortgage or any type of your products, or even questions regarding short-term rental
absolutely.
related?
They can find us on Google. Just type in home mortgage advice Toronto, right? And we are right there with our reviews and everything else. They can find us on Instagram, right? HMA or Russian Business if they want to talk to me directly, right?
And we'll definitely put all your handles and the website in the description below, so you can find Dmitri the Russian.
Exactly.
That's right. Thank you.
Yeah, thank you guys for inviting.
Absolutely.
Truly a pleasure. And like I said, always happy to answer your questions and come as a guest.
Lovely.
Yeah.
Thank you.
Thank you.
Thanks a lot.